Today I am going to show you Irish crochet. Irish crochet is usually the sort of a 3D type. The flowers or leaves or whatever the laces they make has a 3D effect. Irish crochet is from Ireland of Europe. Now I am going to make a 3D flower which is called Irish flower. I have taken knitting cotton. For this thickness, the hook size is 2.5 mm. First, make a slip knot, or you can make a slip knot with the hook as well. Making a slip knot with the hook. Make a slip knot. First, start with 10 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chain, form a ring. So, without twisting, go into the first chain, pull out, pull through the loop in the hook as well. This is called a slip stitch. Join with a slip stitch to form a ring. Now you can see a ring has been formed. Now we are going to make 24 trebles into the ring. So if you are going to make a treble, start with 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. This 3 chain is counted as 1 treble or the first treble. Now we are going to make the second treble. Yarn over into the ring. See, you have to go into the ring, not in the stitch. Go into the ring, pull out. You have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you have one treble, starting with 3 chains, which is counted as 1 treble, and you have done 1 treble. So it is 1, 2. Now we are going to do 24. So after 2 we are going to continue with 22 stitches. The remaining 22 trebles we are going to make. Go into the ring and make the treble. Seven, 8. Now hold the loose end along with the ring and do the trebles. So it will get concealed into the ring. Hold the loose end along with the ring. Let's count. 1, We have 20 trebles now. 20, 21, 22. See, including the 3 chain, we need 24. Twenty-three, 24. Now, join with the slip stitch in the third chain, 1, 2 into the third chain, go into the third chain and join with the slip stitch. Now, see, a round has been formed. Why we have taken 24 trebles? Because we are going to make 8 loops. It is going to be a 8 petal flower. To bring the 8 petals, we have to take the number of stitches which is in multiples of 8. Now, I have taken 24, which is a multiple of 8. Now, I am going to make loops around the ring, around this round, make loops around the round, and into the loops we are going to make the petals. So, 1, 2, 3, 3 chains, miss 2 trebles and go into the third chain, third treble and make a slip stitch. 3 chains, miss 2 trebles, go into the third treble and make a DC. 3 chain, miss 2 stitches and make a DC in the third. 3 chains, miss 2 stitches and make a DC. So, for one loop we need 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3, make 3 chains, miss 2 stitches and in the third one make a DC. 3 chains, miss 2 stitches, in the third one make a DC. 3 chains, miss 2 stitches, third one you make a DC. Last one, 3 chain, miss 2 stitches and make a DC in the beginning stitch. Now, you have 8 loops. Now, you can see the loop. 24 stitches divided into 8 sections. You can see the loop. The loop should not be very loose or very long loop, then the petals will be hanging, it will not be stiff. That is why I have made the loops just with 3 chains and miss 2 and DC. Let the loop be along the ring, only then the petals will be attached to the center. Only then you will get the 3D effect. Now, into this loop we are going to make a DC, 5 trebles and a DC. Since we are going to start with a DC, this is a new row. So, for a DC we have to start with 1 chain. 1 chain, DC into the ring, into the loop, 5 trebles into the same loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 trebles into the same loop and make a DC in the same loop. 1 DC, 5 trebles, 1 DC. Now you can see the petal, the first petal has been formed. Only if the loop is small enough, the petal will have this curved, the real petal effect. Otherwise it will be flat and loose. Now without any stitch in between, we are just going to make the stitches in the next loop, which is 1 DC, 5 trebles, 3, 4, 5 trebles and a DC. 1 DC, 5 trebles, 1 DC into the loop space. This is what we are going to repeat throughout. 1 DC, 1 DC, 5 trebles, 1 DC. Again in the next loop it is going to be 1 DC, 5 trebles, 1 DC. Again 1 DC, 5 trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 trebles, a DC. Next loop 1 DC, 5 trebles, DC. 1 DC, 5 trebles, now the last petal 1 DC, 5 trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 trebles, 1 DC. Now all the 8 petals are over. Join with the slip stitch in the first one. So this row is over. For Irish crochet, the petals have a 3D effect. It looks like a real flower. So for that 3D effect, we need to do the next set of, or the next row of petals just below the, just at the back side of the, just below the first row of petals, for which we are just going to hold it the same, do not turn, hold it the same, and just see on the back side. On the back side, you have to make a DC on the DC of the previous row. In the previous row, we made 3 chain DC, 3 chain DC. In that DC, in the DC of the previous row, we are going to make a slip stitch. Just see behind and make a slip stitch in the DC of the previous row. So now the hook has come to the DC of the previous row on the back side of the work. See, this is the right side, front side. Just on the back side of the work, we have made a slip stitch and come here. Now make another set of 8 loops, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 chains. Make 4 chains and DC on top of the DC of the previous row. Previous row we did 3 chain DC, 3 chain DC, the same DC. Now we are going to make 4 chain DC in the same DC. Again 4 chain DC in the DC of the previous row. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, now the loops are getting formed on the back side. This is the front side. On the back side, you can see another set of loops are getting formed. 4 DC, again 4 DC on the back loop, one, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 DC on the back loop, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have come to the starting point. So make a slip stitch in the first DC. Now you can see this is the front side, and just under the flower petals you can see the loops have been formed. Just below the first row of petals, again you have 8 petals have been formed. Just under the first row of petals, you have another set of 8 loops. Now we are going to continue the next second row of petals, for which we are going to do 1 DC, 7 trebles and 1 DC, because the second row of petals have to be a little more bigger than this petal. So, it is going to be DC. If you are going to do a DC, starting a new row, you have to start with 1 chain. So, 1 chain, DC into the loop, then 7 trebles, one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a DC. Again in the next loop it is going to be a DC, seven trebles, four, 5, 6, 7 trebles, 1 and a DC. Now in the next petal, DC, 7 trebles, it is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trebles or a DC. The same way into the next loop, 1 DC, now you can see clearly that the loop is just behind the first row of petals. Four, 5, 6, 7 and a DC. You can see the next loop. In the next loop, 1 DC, 5 trebles, seven trebles, sorry, 1 DC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trebles, 1 DC. Now into the next loop, DC, seven trebles and a DC. This is the, now we are going to make the last loop. This is the last loop we are going to make. So DC, 7 trebles, seventh treble, 1 DC in the same space. Now we have finished the last petal. Join with the slip stitch in the first DC. Now you can see from the center ring you have one set of petals. Just below the first row of petals you have the next row of petals. This is Irish crochet. In Irish crochet we have done a Irish flower. I am just showing it to you in a thicker thread. Usually Irish flower is done in very thin thread like T20 or T40, very thin thread, number 20 or number 40. Only then it looks very elegant and very pretty. Now I will show you how to make the third row, the next row of petals. You can see 1, 2 rows of petals. We are going to make one row of petals just below the flower, below this layer of petals. So for which we are going to again go to the back side of the petal layer. Just go back side. Do not turn, just go behind and go to the DC of the previous row. And make a slip stitch. DC of the previous row and make a slip stitch. So now you have just gone behind the two rows of petals, and you have just gone behind to the previous DC of the previous row. Now again we are going to make loops around the back side of the flower. For making the loops, DC of the previous row. Again 2, 3, 4, 5 chains, DC of the previous row. DC on the back side, make a DC. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go into the DC of the previous row. So a loop is formed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. DC of the previous row. DC of the previous row. One, two, three, 4, 5 DC in the DC of the previous row. One, two, three, 4, 5. Now go into the first stitch and make a slip stitch. Now you can see the loops have been formed on the back side, that is under the 2 rows of petals. See this loop, the first row, for the loop we did 3 chain and DC. For the second row of petals, for the loop we made 4 chain and DC. Here in this third row we have done 5 chain and DC. You have to gradually increase the size of the loop after every row. Now into the loop we are going to make the petal, which is we are going to make a DC. So start with 1 chain, make a DC. Now we are going to make, this is a little more bigger loop. So we are going to make 9 trebles into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a DC in the same loop. Now you can see the size of the petal is little bigger. Here we did 5 trebles DC, 5 trebles DC, so the petal is smaller. Next row is DC, 7 treble DC, a little bigger petal, and in the third row it is DC, 9 trebles DC. The petal is even more bigger. You can see the gradual increase in the size of the petals. Only then that real flower effect will come. You will get the real effect of the flower. Now into the next loop, DC, nine trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, DC into the same space, same loop. Now continue with the next one. DC, 8, 9. 9 petals, DC. DC, 9 trebles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a DC. Now the next loop is here. We are going to make it into the next loop. After the DC, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a DC into the same space. Now the petal into the next loop. You can see the next loop. We are going to do it into the next loop. DC, 9 trebles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9 and a DC. The last loop, you can see the last loop, make a DC, 9 trebles, one DC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now go into the first DC and make a slip stitch. Now you can see the 3 rows of petals. It's a nice 3D effect flower. The same way we are going to repeat the 4th row. Go behind, go to the DC of the previous row, make a slip stitch. Now start forming the loops. Loops will be 1 chain more, extra 1 chain. So it will be 3, 4, 5 and now 6 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 chains. Go into the DC of the previous row from behind, from the back side of the go into the DC of the previous row, make a DC. Again 6 chain, 4, 5, 6. Go make a DC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A DC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. DC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A DC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have come to the starting point. starting point, join with the slip stitch. Now you can see the 8 loops have been formed behind the petals. You have 3 rows of petals and the 8 loops behind the 3 rows. This is the 4th row. This is the 4th row of petals. This is the 4th row of loops. Now we are going to make the petals on the 4th row, which is we have to increase the number of stitches. As usual, we are going to start with a DC. So 1 chain, DC into the loop, and for the first row it was for the first petal it was 5 trebles. The second petal it was 7 trebles. For the third petal it was 9 trebles. Now for the fourth petal, 4th row of petals, it is going to be 11 trebles. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 trebles, DC in the same loop. The same way we are going to continue the next loop. Next loop is going to be 1 DC, 11 trebles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. DC in the same loop. Now you can see the next loop. Next loop, go into the loop and make a DC, eleven trebles. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, DC. Now the next loop, is going to be DC, 11 trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, DC. The next loop, a DC, 11 trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and a DC. Now you can see the next loop. Go into the loop and make 1 DC, eleven trebles. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and the DC at the end. Now you can see the last loop, one loop remaining. Into the loop, DC, 11 trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and a DC in the same loop. Now we have finished all the loops, finished all the petals, 8 petals. Join with a slip stitch in the first DC. Now we have finished the petal, finished the flower. You can fasten off. Pull the thread long, bring the ball through the loop, tighten it, leave a little and cut it off, fasten off. Now whip the thread through the wrong side. Just whip through each stitch. Now it doesn't show where you have finished where you have fastened off thread. Now you can see 4 rows of petals. Even if you do 2 rows, it will look very pretty. Depends upon your requirement. Either you can do 2 rows or 3 rows. The same method. Keep on increasing. You can take thicker yarn or even woolen yarn and make many number of rows of petals like this. This is 4 rows. You can make 10 or 15 rows. So the flower will become a very big flower, and you can make it into a cushion cover, the round cushion cover. The cushion cover will look like a flower, big flower. Irish rose. You can see the petal difference on the wrong side, the under down part of the flower. It's a 3D flower. This is called Irish flower from Ireland.